So, welcome to the live expert panel of Reclaim the Joy of Motherhood. And I'm really excited and grateful and delighted to have these 5 amazing women with me today. Well, 4 for now. Lynn is joining. So I'm really excited about that. And I just wanted to let everyone know that the intention today is to really share some practical advice, some tips, some real experiences that you can take and apply to your day-to-day life. But what we don't want to do is add up to your already busy to-do list. So if there's something that doesn't feel quite right, that maybe doesn't resonate with you so much, that's okay. You don't necessarily need to take everything and go and apply. Take what really resonates with you, what you think can really help you, and give it a go. And everything else you can just keep with you and see if that works out for you at a later stage. But really just see what happens, see what resonates, and try it out. And in terms of questions, we've got some questions prepared, but you are very welcome to drop your questions into the chat. And I'm just adding Lynn to the panel now. There we go. Lynn is here. Let me just ask you to unmute. No worries. You just made it on time. Anyone in the audience, drop your questions in the chat box. If it's for someone in particular, please just mention their name so that I can, address the right person. And otherwise, I just wanted to say thank you for being here with me in the audience, but obviously our speakers and experts today, I would like to introduce them. So we've got Peggy Sullivan, who is a speaker and an author and the founder of She Can. And then we've got Bucher, who is a master life coach. We've got Weiss, who is a health coach and master workplace wellness consultant. And Adrienne, who is a holistic financial planner. And Julian, who is an author, speaker, and patient experience consultant. So welcome everyone today. Let me just open my questions here. All right, so let's get into the questions. I want to start by asking you, you've got an incredible life experience and an incredible knowledge, but at the end of the day, you are all humans. And that means that you are likely also getting stressed at some point in your life. So what's your favorite tool in your stress relief toolkit? Maybe Peggy, you want to share first.
Sure. Yeah, I'll go first. And I'm going to thank Lynn Bucher for teaching me this tool because she taught it to me probably a year and a half ago. And it is still an amazing tool. And I sit and I say to myself, if what is really stressing me out under my control or not under my control? And if it's not under my control, there's no point in stressing and worrying about it because it's out of my control. If it is under my control, then I think about what small positive thing I can do to make it less stressful on me. And a lot of times that means taking a big project and breaking it into tiny little baby steps. And I also have this other thing that I do often, and that is I reward myself with little things along the way. Dark chocolate, for me, that works really, really good. Love my dark chocolate after I make a baby step.
That's a great one. Yeah, I love those little rewards. They are really helpful and just fun. It's so important to have some fun. So Linda, I mean, now Peggy took one of your perfect tools, but maybe you have another one that you can share.
Yeah, sure. So I always say that stress is inevitable, but being stressed out is optional. So I have like this little baby toolkit that I'll just simplify. And these are things that I just incorporate all the time. Like they're always with me. So the first is don't believe everything you think. Your thought about whatever's going on is what's stressing you out, probably more likely than the actual thing that's going on. So another one is you got to focus on and deal with what is, not what if, which means you got to stay right here, right now. If it's in the future, it's not real. And if you know the future, I always tell everybody, please tell me tomorrow's lottery numbers because I would like to play that. Otherwise, focus on what is, not what if. Another little piece of that is recognize that the behavior of other people is never about you. They're coming at you from their own beliefs, their own fears, their own insecurities, their own lens of perception. It has nothing to do with you. When they're throwing stuff at you, it's not about you. And the last thing is, if you want to, have stress being optional, being stressed out being optional, follow your gut instincts. Don't go the wrong way. We all go the wrong way when we know in our gut we should be going another way, and whether or not you listen to your gut, it's always right.
Yeah, the gut instinct is a strong one. So Adrienne, what is your favorite tool?
Well, all of those are excellent, but what my tool is just a little bit more practical, and that is I meditate every day. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't mean you have to sit on a cushion and cross your legs and be gone for an hour. I just sit quietly wherever I am, close my eyes, and then just try to let my mind do whatever it's going to do and rein it in to create a feeling of freedom, kind of nothingness, but just let it go. Mm-hmm. And while I'm doing that, I'm doing a deep breath, which we could actually all do for just a moment. So just breathe into the count of 4, hold it for the count of 4, and then let it out for the count of 4. It's a great way to center yourself, kind of let some of the stress go. And it has the added benefit of bringing some more oxygen to your brain so that when you're done, you can think just a little more clearly about where you are.
That was great. Another great tip about breathing is I always say to myself, breathe in relaxation, breathe out stress. And I literally visualize stress leaving my body, leaving my head, and then I'm really breathing in relaxation. It's like this mind-head game that works well with me as well.
Lovely. So Lynn, you've got something to add there.
Oh, of course, of course. I start off with celebrate the small stuff. You've all heard of don't sweat the small stuff. It's easy to say and hard to do. I think we all talk a big talk, but it's much harder to walk the walk. And so, as Peggy was saying, with me, a little chocolate goes a long way. Whenever I get something right, I definitely try to mentally acknowledge it, pat myself on the back, and give myself a little treat, because I know when I mess up, I'm going to berate myself in a way that I know I am talking myself and saying, don't do that. No negative self-talk. Negative self-talk. Think of yourself like your best friend. Would you talk to your best friend that way? No? Well, don't talk to yourself that way. So reward yourself. I also try to remain grateful. To me, the secret to happiness is gratefulness. And I don't mean I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to live where I live. I mean, in that moment, this car just cut me off and I am losing my mind in traffic. What am I grateful for right now? 3 things right now. I'm grateful that I'm on my way to somewhere I love or someone I love. I'm grateful I have this nice car with warm heat in it in the winter. And I'm grateful that my kids are with me or my dog or whatever it is. Just 3 things right in that moment will take your mind off whatever's upsetting you, because guess how long emotions last? 90 seconds. That's all. If you can just get through 90 seconds, you got this.
You got this, yeah. And Ellen, you've got anything that you want to add there?
I think these are all amazing suggestions, and I definitely try to implement some of these in my daily life. Just like Adrienne said, I do that 4-count breathing all the time, and I find it very relaxing. And another thing that I've added into my daily schedule is journaling. It also is a way to mark how grateful you are, but also sometimes we all have those moving thoughts that go through our mind constantly. And through journaling, if you can kind of brain dump and get those thoughts out of your head and onto a piece of paper, it kind of helps me to sort of organize my thoughts a little bit better and calm my mind.
Love that.
And what's really great about that is once they're on paper, now you can take my don't believe everything you think. You can challenge those thoughts. Wait a day, come back to them. I go, okay, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe that's not true. That's beautiful.
It's true, yeah. Take a little bird's eye perspective and see what's really true and what's not. So thank you so much. So stress, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to add one last thing, that if you're really struggling beyond what the help that we provided today, cognitive processing therapy eliminates those negative thoughts and those possibility scenarios in your head. And cognitive processing therapy, CPT, is something to look into if you're needing more help than we're providing here today about anxiety.
If I can jump in on that, Lynn, I think you made an excellent point, and certainly we're going to cover a number of topics, but if there's anything that anyone who's listening right now has a major problem with, one of the best things that I think we could all agree on is ask for help. You don't have to go through these things alone, whether they're large or small or just medium-sized. Ask for help, and help will be provided to lift some of the burden off of your shoulders and allow you to cope more effectively.
And asking is usually the hardest step.
It is.
Yeah, it's receiving. People find it very difficult to receive, especially moms. We're so busy giving. It's very hard to receive. But receiving, because we feel vulnerable, that's why it's so hard. And vulnerability is actually a strength, not a weakness.
I love that.
I think
Thank
you'll
you
see
so
us
much
all
for adding.
nodding on that.
Yes. We all agree. Okay, so stress was one big part of the series that I've just concluded. The other part is resilience and finding strength. So my next question is, in your opinion, what are the common characteristics of someone who is resilient? Who wants to start? Maybe Linda?
Sure. So resiliency is about our ability to bounce back after setbacks. So resilient people don't make it mean something about them when they have a setback. They see the setback as something separate from their identity. They don't make failure mean that they don't have what it takes to be successful. They don't make someone treating them poorly mean that they aren't enough. They don't let fear rule their life. So resiliency is, I always think of it like Indiana Jones. He finds himself in the pit of snakes. He doesn't despair. He just goes, oh, crap, snakes. I hate snakes. And he gets up and he dusts off his knees and he says, I didn't see that coming. Now what? So you acknowledge that you had the setback. You don't make it mean something about you. And you say, where do I go right now from here? And that's what resilient people have in common.
I'd like to add to that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking the same thing. Go ahead, Peggy.
I know for me, it's giving myself permission to be one hot mess. And I used to think like Peggy had to be perfect. And felt a lot of pressure to be perfect. But the messier I get, the more I realize it's an opportunity to move forward and to learn something from it. And the bigger the mess, the worse the mess, probably the greater lesson that I've learned from it. So for me, I am no longer afraid of failing on any level. I embrace my failures. I laugh at them, and then I take a step back and say, okay, what can I do differently next time around?
To parlay off both of those things, yes, my grandmother told me, and I use this every day of my life, that it's not a mistake. As long as you find something to learn, then it becomes a lesson. And the amount of mistakes you made in your life gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And the amount of lessons you learn gets longer and longer and longer. I hate making mistakes, love learning lessons. And to add on to the first speaker, it's not personal. Those 3 words, that's a mantra you need to repeat in your head. I personally had problems with my mother. We're talking about motherhood. My mom had some mental health issues, and not her fault, but very difficult to live with. And my whole life I spent asking myself the wrong questions growing up. Why aren't I good enough? Why aren't I loved? Why this? And what I should have been saying to myself is, it's not personal. When someone you think is attacking you or think you've been wronged, you're upset, That's all you have to ask yourself. Do they treat everyone that way or just me? If they treat everyone that way, it's not personal. Stop beating yourself up, stop wasting your energy, and move on. Learn the lesson and move on.
Love that. Adrienne or Ellen, you want to add something to that?
Sure. I would say that resilient people, to tack on to Lynn, and I think we're going to do a lot of this since we're all on a lot of the same pages here, is to keep learning. Make your mistakes, but keep learning. Resilient people have the ability to adapt and pivot. And I think that all of us have faced a lot of change over these last several years. And we've learned through trial and error and lots of error, we've learned to be adaptable. I think that's probably the most important thing, to know deep inside, you can do this, you got this. We're all moms. Moms don't get to resign. Okay, moms keep pushing on. And you know, every time that you face some adversity and you come through it, what you're really doing is you're modeling for your children how adults deal with problems. They can see you cry, they can see you have a meltdown, but they see that you come back afterwards. And that's a huge life lesson for them as well as for you.
I love that. Ellen, what about you?
The only thing I was going to add is, I know so many times we have those negative thoughts that sort of come into our mind. We sort of talked about that a little bit. But what I try to do is practice positive thinking and positive affirmations. And whether you write them down and you put them on your bathroom mirror, or you put them on your phone and kind of continue to look at those throughout the day, just giving yourself some positive reinforcement has helped me get through some tough times over the last few years. So either you're saying, you know, I am good enough, I am special, whatever, these can be personal to you, but I think it's important to bring some positivity into your own mind.
I'd like to piggyback on that a little bit too, because one of my favorite tools is to, when something happens, to find 10, not 8, not 6, 10 gifts in it. 10. The first couple will be a little obvious and you'll roll your eyes at them. But if you stay the course and you get to 10, then that's how you shift your perception, because very, very, very often, the worst things that ever happened to us are actually the best things that ever happened to us.
The Buddhists have a saying, never judge anything bad or good too quickly, because what you think is a bad thing that just happened may open doors for you in a day, a week, a month, a year. You don't know. So try not to judge in the moment.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it might not be apparent first what might be the good thing coming out of it, but further down the line, it's also often like we look back at something, we're like, actually, yeah, this enabled me to do that, which we don't know in that moment, but it does happen very often. All right, lovely. Anyone needs to add something on this question? Good. So the next question, and that's something that has come up today already, and also during the series that I did with those 13 amazing ladies, is that to move forward, we try to focus on what's in our control. But life happens, as we said, and sometimes these things are not in our control. And then it can be difficult to move on. So if someone here in the audience is struggling with trying to remove some obstacles that they're facing in their life, what would you advise them? Ellen, maybe you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think if there are big obstacles that you're trying to deal with, you know, I think a lot of these suggestions can be a good first step, but if it's a big obstacle, if it's something that you're really struggling with, I think at that point, I would maybe try to ask someone for help, whether, you know, a professional, friends, family. So I think that kind of could piggyback on, you know, ask for help and, you know, see if you can take baby steps to try to get those obstacles out of your way. And if you can't do that, then I would ask for some some professional help with that.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about this, I think about, for me, one of the hardest times in my life was when my mother got pancreatic cancer, and people don't recover from that cancer. It's a really brutal cancer. And I can remember when I first learned about it, you know, I sat down and I said, okay, well, I'm going to be educated on everything I need to know about this. So when my mother is going through anything, I'm going to be able to relate and to talk to her and to kind of help her through it. And the other thing that I did a real lot was I'd start to look at a piece of paper and I start to think, okay, I can't control the cancer, but maybe I can make her cookies today. Or maybe I can just go over and turn on her favorite TV show, I Love Lucy. Or, you know, I just started to think about things that would help her get out of her own head. And to me, then I felt really good because I could bring her to a different mindset that was very positive, and that was something I could control, my mindset and her mindset.
Keeping going what Peggy was just saying, I just lost my father to pancreatic cancer very recently. And I mean, everyone fears cancer. We almost whisper it like we could bring it to life if we said it any louder. What I suggest, if you have obstacles that you feel are overwhelming you, is go to a group that's larger than yourself. Go to a group of patient advocates or experts. In the particular example of pancreatic cancer, I called up the PanCan network automatically. I got emails of support. I got my father hooked up with a Facebook support group. They had all kinds of suggestions. He called me up and thanked me immediately after a knee-jerk no. He said, I'm sick, I'm tired, I don't need any more work. And I'm like, Dad, I'll do all the work. I think a support group would help you. It'll just give you options. One day he's calling me back and thanking me, and realizes the weight is lifted from your shoulders the more people you share it with.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And Linda,
I'll chime in. So whether it's in motherhood, in other aspects of life, at work, in your business, the first thing you've got to do is determine whether that obstacle is internal or external. Most of them you'll find are internal. We happen to be in our own way more than we think we are. So for those internal obstacles, that's when you can help. You can maybe identify the underlying cause of that obstacle yourself, or get help to figure out what it is. But it's usually fear tangled up in a belief system that you've cultivated over the years that doesn't actually serve you. Maybe it never did, maybe it did, but it doesn't serve you anymore. So understanding what, more about that fear is a very first and essential step for internal obstacles. When it comes to the external ones, the things that really are not in your control, there's a couple of things that you can do. Obviously, as I think Peggy mentioned earlier, focus on what you can control. But there's two things that could really help when you have a goal, but there's these obstacles that are in the way. The one thing is to set a very powerful intention, like a declaration. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to move past. Whatever it happens to be. A declaration is so much more powerful than, oh, I hope I get to, or I wish I could. Okay. So that's number one. And number two is that declaration is not going to work unless you have the belief that it's possible. You don't have to believe. I love to get myself to the belief that it's already done. It's a done deal. The universe will provide it. If I get through the crap, it'll be there for me. Right. But that's not, what everybody can start with. I would say just start with getting your belief to possible, because if it's impossible, your brain will never ask that magic question of, how can I get past this obstacle? It won't, because it just doesn't seem, there's not a way. It's impossible. This is an obstacle. It's in my way. It's external. It's not in my control. There's nothing I can do about it. That might not be true. So the way to get to possible is you can just ask. A lot of times we can see things better from a perspective when we're looking at someone else than we can when we're looking at ourselves. So we can say, has this obstacle ever been overcome by anybody ever, anywhere, right? And the answer is almost always yes. And then you can say, okay, how did they do it, right? How did that person do it? And now you've moved it from impossible, an obstacle that's unmovable outside of your control, to something that's possible to get over. Once you understand how someone else has gotten over it, now you can take those next steps, those small steps. You can get support, you can do your research, you can make a plan, you can take small steps to actually move past that obstacle. So, but again, at the very outset, make sure you understand if you're in your own way, if it involves fear, resistance, uncertainty, that's internal, or if it's an external obstacle.
Lovely, thank you. Adrienne, you have anything that you want to add?
Wow, we've done great on this question. I would just say to recognize that sometimes what we consider to be obstacles are things that other people do. And to remember that the only person whose behavior we can control is ours, and we don't always do a very good job at that. So if you focus on your own response and not what other people are doing, there was this poem we had to learn in school, you know, if everyone else around you is losing their head and blaming it on you, it's not you. It's not you. So if we can keep centered in ourselves as we're facing whatever this obstacle is, and acknowledge what we can do, back to what everyone else has said about what can you control. The only thing you can control is you. And if we do that, then we can overcome anything. Or if we can't blow through it, we can go under it, around it, over it, or live through it, one of those.
Thank you so much. This was a really interesting answers there. And to pick up on what Linda said is that we're often our own, we create those obstacles internally. And one story that has been coming up throughout the summit as well is the trouble that a lot of women and moms have in terms of self-love and self-worth and prioritizing themselves. They don't feel worthy, they don't feel they deserve that, they are too busy, they can't prioritize themselves because everyone else has priority over them. What's your advice to a mom who's really struggling to prioritize herself? Who wants to go first?
Self-care is often seen as selfish, and it's not. Self-care, I know we've all heard this and we're probably bored hearing it, but if you have to ask this question, you have not learned the lesson yet. Put your own oxygen mask on first. Self-care is the most important part of your care, which might seem backwards that, oh no, my children come before me. Well, your children can't come before you if you're not there. If you don't take care of yourself and you get sick, you cannot be there for your children. So self-care has to come first. And let's just finish with stress. Well, stress, that's anxiety. You know, that's not my priority. My priority is my kids. Stress leads to inflammation. Inflammation leads to precancerous cells. Precancerous cells lead to cancer. You have to address stress if you want to be there for your kids.
Great point. Yeah. I'd like to add that, piggybacking on this, it's not selfish. Your children and your other loved ones deserve the best in you, the best of you. And your relationships can only ever be as good as your relationship with yourself. So that's why it's essential to prioritize your personal growth, your personal understanding of how the world really works, what you can control yourself, and your health as well. And when you think about whether you're being selfish or not, I'd like you to think about the legacy that you're leaving your children, because what you're really leaving them is the experience of watching you. You want them to follow their dreams? Be that example. You want them to course correct when they're unhappy? Be that example. You want them to attend to their mental health, their emotional health, their physical well-being? Be that example. So prioritizing yourself for moms, when we want to do everything for everyone else, if you need to shift it, your perception to say, I'm prioritizing me. So for other people, if that's what's working for you, that's the best way to look at it for you.
It's amazing how, we get so busy and busy isn't happy. Our things to do list is so long. And, I'll just share a personal experience. Last week it was hellacious for me. I literally public spoke 4 different groups, 4 different speeches. I was busy day, noon, and night. I had a lot of deadlines. By the time Saturday rolled around, I was exhausted. I still had a lot to do, and I still had a lot that I need to get done. And so I went to work out with a friend, and I was kind of commiserating with him, basically saying, I've had these visitors in the house, and I kind of want to celebrate and do something for myself, but my husband's playing golf and I'm alone and blah, 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 blah. Woe is me. And he looked at me and he said, let's just spend the next hour playing, doing something really, really, really fun. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't do this, but you know what? I did it anyways. And when I was done with that hour, I felt so energized. I felt like a new person. And so taking a pause is so important because it'll give back to you things that are totally unexpected. And if you don't take that pause, if you don't take that, get off the treadmill, take one moment to breathe, do something for yourself, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, schedule it, hard schedule it, but take that pause, because it's in those pauses that we get to rebuild ourselves, which gives us all this endurance to do it all over again.
I love that point, Peggy. And I think also self-care, it doesn't need to be a full day spa experience. It can literally be, a 15-minute walk outside and just get some fresh air. It's the little things that we do for ourselves that make us a better mom, a better wife, a better partner, a better person. But it's so true. I mean, we need to take care of ourselves and, brainstorm, write down things that you love to do that you can do in small increments during the day. Because I think self-care is very personal. What's good for one person maybe isn't good for someone else. So find the things that you love to do that will bring you joy, that will bring you relaxation, and try to schedule those things into your day, into your week. And, just give yourself those small opportunities to kind of reboot yourself, refresh yourself, and come back a better, calmer, happier person.
And also that helps you to not build resentment. Because when we are overwhelmed and overworked and overstressed, because we haven't given ourselves what we need, we somehow think it's someone else's responsibility to give us what we need. And not only is it not their responsibility, they're not actually even able to do it. So what happens is if you're expecting someone else to do it and they're not able, they don't see it, whatever, you build resentment towards them. And that's not how you can be your best self. You're as a mother, as a sister, as a friend, as a daughter, as an employee, a peer. So resentment, if you're ever feeling resentment, looking close at what you're not getting and giving it to yourself is the only answer.
I have this favorite candle that I have on my desk, and it's not lit, but it smells so delicious. And I just learned that you release endorphins when you smell something really, really good. So there are so many small ways, a fresh cup of coffee and breathing that in deep, your candle that smells like frosted cupcakes. I mean, it's so delicious in the middle of the day, and it releases endorphins. So going for a walk, that's another thing. Moving, getting your blood going is also another thing that will take your mind off what's going on.
You touched on something great, Peggy, that they've done studies about the power of smell. And they said that people who just put their nose in the bag of coffee, their brain lit up in almost the same way as if they drank the coffee. So if caffeine bothers you, or maybe it's too late in the day to have the coffee, just smell it and your brain will light up the same way.
Very cool. I love that.
I need to do that.
I'd like to add that, as moms, you have a lot of skills, a lot of techniques that you use to work with your children. You reward them for their good behavior. You acknowledge them when they're pleasant and kind and do something nice for someone else. If you model those behaviors for yourself, you're showing your kids in a different way how to do what you do for them. And then you put yourself then you value yourself in their eyes as well as in your own. For me, I always have flowers on my desk, particularly flowers that smell good. And when my daughter was small, I remember the joy of a bubble bath at the end of the day. I'm not talking about anything major, but it's the little things, as we've all said, the little things that you enjoy that help you fulfill your own self. Somebody has said, you can't, you can't pour from an empty cup. Mm-hmm. So in order to maintain your own sense of humor, your own sense of enjoyment, like Linda said, if you don't replenish that, then you get kind of bitter and resentful, and that's not the way anybody wants to be. And if I can refer to Peggy, who always says happiness is your own responsibility, then again, for your own happiness and to show your children how to do that, you find ways to make yourself happy. Didn't we all spend some time, and Amanda's probably doing this now, teaching your kids how to soothe themselves? So it's not always about you, but finding within themselves those things that can help them overcome the unhappiness that they're feeling at the moment. It's a terrific life skill. One of the things that I wrote down that we've talked about already also is we need to redefine selfishness and put up that positive spin on it, because if you don't take care of yourself, hey, nobody is going to, and we all need it. So use the skills that you use with your children on yourself, and find, I'm sure that things will go along a lot more smoothly, and you'll just enjoy it more.
There was a study done by UCLA called the Tend and Befriend study. And what the study learned was it studied people under stress. And it literally looked at MRIs when people were under stress. And it showed that men and women, all fight or flight is your reaction to stress. That's just the cortisol happens, and that's what happens. But women secrete a third hormone called oxytocin. And that gives us the ability to want to talk to other women. It's about nurturing. It's about, talking to a friend if you've got something going on in your head. And we get that oxytocin chemical. It comes out naturally. And so finding a community of like-minded women is also a really great tool to help you through good and bad. Having a great network, having a great community is one of the best gifts you can give yourself in terms of self-care, because you will learn from all those women around you on how to do something maybe better than you doing it yourself. And it is the most amazing tool. I learned something from my beloved She Can community every day, all the time. And it's just having community is amazing. And that's how I met you, right, Lynn? I mean, that's how I met each and every one of you. So, community is so critical.
And I would be remiss if I did not mention the 7 C's of resilience is what I speak on, because this is one of them. The competence, confidence, character, contribution, coping, control, and, as Peggy said, connection, which is to your community.
Absolutely. And this is why we're all here in any case, because we want to build that community and learn from each other, because that's just so powerful, I believe. So I loved all these answers. Thank you so much. But more about is this busyness. Everyone seems to be incredibly busy. No one is able to manage their time. Everyone wants more time. But at the end of the day, I learned that a lot, is that it's not necessarily managing your time, it's more managing your energy, so that you have, like you said, the stamina, Peggy, that you can actually power through and all of that. So how do you manage your energy, ladies? Maybe Ellen, you're very much into the health and wellness, so maybe you've got some tips there.
Well, I think there's lots of things that you can do to sort of, increase your energy level. And some of the things we've talked about, taking care of yourself is so important. And just like trying new things. We talked about getting outside and breathing that fresh air. No matter what season it is, no matter what the temperature is outside, try to get outside and breathe in some good fresh air. That kind of brings up my energy level a lot. But there's so many techniques. I would just encourage everyone to try different things and find out what really fits good with your inner self, whether it's meditation, whether it is art as a form of self-expression. But there's so many things that you can do to kind of just bring that happiness and bring that sense of inner energy back. So I definitely encourage everyone just to brainstorm and find things that you really enjoy doing, or something that you've never done before, and give it a try. It might be something that like you really enjoy and that will kind of bring back that energy to you.
And don't underestimate the basics. Sleep is a basic thing we all need. We all underestimate what important things happen while you're sleeping. And that is one of the single most important things you can do. And it doesn't cost anything. Drinking water throughout the day, that's another thing. A lot of times fatigue is brought on by dehydration. And so I drink 5 of these every single day. That means I drink 100 ounces of water, which was crazy when I started it. But it really, really helps your energy. Eating healthy. That's another thing. Your fruits, your vegetables, eating things that, I make sure to eat oatmeal every day. I swear to God, when I eat a bowl of oatmeal, I literally, when I'm done, I feel the energy surging through my veins. There are just so many small things that you can do that make a big difference.
Piggybacking off Peggy, because I just wanted to say that phrase, piggybacking off Peggy. It is a lot about lifestyle choices that you make. And I'm not saying go on a diet. Nobody wants to hear that. I'm saying like the little stuff she was talking about, having a bath, maybe add some Epsom salt, a couple of cups to your bath. It's $8 for an 8-pound bag. Maybe add a couple of tablespoons of baking soda, because that gets the chlorine diffused out of your water. And maybe you're sensitive to chlorine. You don't even know it. So just put a couple of tablespoons in your bath. I also detox using coffee enemas, which leaves you completely energized for the day. And it's a detox. The getting sunlight every day. We all say it and then we think, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time. Maybe you can combine it with an errand. Don't drive for that errand. Walk for that errand, or walk the dog, even if they use wee-wee pads, or walk the kids to school, even if they have a bus. Just get out for 20 minutes once a day to wake up your brain. Great supplements for that. Resveratrol and Russian rhodiola are both better than caffeine for some, because they don't have that peak and then crash that caffeine gives you. It's just steady energy all day. Resveratrol and Russian rhodiola, they're just roots.
I'd like to also add on to those. Those are all beautiful strategies for how to gain some more energy practically. And one of the things, though, that can sap our energy, well, maybe there's a couple of them. One is, have you ever been all energized and you spend 5 minutes with one person and you feel like you've used all your emotional capacity for the entire day just in that 5 minutes, right? Okay. Or, you're worrying about something. So you haven't even physically done anything and you're excited exhausted because your brain's been blah, 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 the monkey mind, the worry, the whatever. So there are a lot of things that sap our energy. And we do, if you treat your body well and you get good sleep and you treat yourself well, you will wake up in the morning with your tank energized, especially if you start with your gratitude journal. So I'll bounce off of what Ellen said earlier. I use a gratitude journal every morning. And so I start my day in gratitude. My tank is full. But what we've got to do is make sure that we avoid the things that suck our tank dry, those siphons, someone who's stealing our gas, right? So we all know who those people are. And so there's three things about boundaries. It's really about boundaries. So you got to protect your own energy. It's yours. And so it's very important to protect it. And when we protect it, one of the ways is through boundaries, and boundaries have to do with three things. One is setting the boundary, two is communicating the boundary, and three is enforcing the boundary 100% of the time. So I'm not going to go into that, but boundaries can really help you protect your own energy. Saying, like, knowing where it's not good for you to be. That's not good for me. I know sometimes there's conversations that you can have with some people, but if you have them with other people, you know, like, oh, I shouldn't have told that person. Know who you can share what with, right? This is how you protect your energy. Don't put yourself in a position where you're going to be on the defensive, or know that, you know, when you try to convince and control other people and you want them to believe you, understand you, whatever, and they're just not going to do it because it's outside of your control, because they don't. Let it go. Don't let things sap your energy.
And I loved what you were talking about with boundaries, because I think that's really important. And especially for moms, we're used to saying yes to everyone. And, you know, this is sort of going back to, you know, self-care a little bit, but it's okay to say no. You know, it's okay to sort of set those boundaries so that you are only filling yourself up with things that you really want to do. It's hard to say no to people, whether it's volunteer work or helping out a neighbor or whatever it is. And I think a good phrase that I've learned for keeping boundaries, because I have a very difficult time saying no, is just saying something like, let me think about that and get back to you. Give yourself a minute to think about it, to make sure that it fits within your boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. I would just kind of add that if you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right. So I generally wake up in the morning. I'm blessed that I sleep well. And I wake up in the morning and I say to myself, it's going to be a great day. I'm going to have a good day today. So I set my internal clock, if you will, to have a good day. And when I find that when I do that, things that might otherwise derail me or upset me or whatever kind of slide off, because I've already established that I'm going to have a good day. And so I do. So I invite you to try that. Tell yourself it's going to be a great day. Now, it doesn't have to be, you know, a champagne and roses kind of day, although why not? But if you say you're going to have a good day, the odds are so much better that you will.
Thank you. There are definitely a few ideas and things there that I will try to implement in my life. So it's there's always something to learn and always something to try out, because yeah, we never know what works, what doesn't work, but I love each of them. And before we get into maybe handing over to those ladies in the audience, if they've got any question, there's one last question I want to ask you, and that goes a little bit back to resilience. We already touched a little bit on it, but I think it's I would love to just hear some personal stories from you, where maybe in your life you had a moment where you had to reinvent yourself to come out on the other side, and what you've learned in those moments. Linda, you want to go first? Or Peggy? Go
sure,
ahead.
I'll start off, and I've told this story many, many times. I actually have two stories, but the one story I talked a little bit about my mom and how she just had the misfortune. She actually had a brain tumor, and then she had pancreatic cancer. And her first reaction to all of that was to basically be depressed, to be angry. She was in a lot of pain, and that went on for a long period of time. And then one day she wasn't, out of the clear blue. And I asked her, Mom, what changed? And she says, I finally get it. It's all about my attitude. And I'm going to flip the switch, and I'm going to embrace happiness, because it's the one thing in my life that I have total control over. And I may be dead in a couple of days, but I don't care. I'm going to be happy today and enjoy my life. And so for me, that mindset switch and knowing that you have the power to do that is one of the greatest tools of all.
I like going after Peggy. Maybe you inspire me. One of the 7 C's that you just referred to again is control. That when we don't feel in control, our anxiety level just goes through the roof. And certainly what could make us feel less in control than death, than illness, chronic illness. We're supposed to talk about something personal. I struggle with chronic illness. I have 7 rare conditions and diseases. I had no idea they came in such large quantities. I started out with 1, and then you just keep getting diagnosed. But without feeling in control, all I do is feel like I'm whitewater rafting, and it's just constant waves beating up against me. Whereas if I set boundaries and I stick to them, and I use my coping skills, I use my character, I use my community like she can, I use my contributions and listen to other people's contributions to learn, the more in control I feel, and say, this is control. My anxiety was through the roof, but as my control goes up, my anxiety goes down. So it's very important to, as AA says, control the things you can and let go of the things you cannot, and know the difference.
Yeah, I'll share my story. So one sunny day in May of 2003, I woke up and my husband did not. I found myself a sudden widow and a sudden single mom of 3 little children, young and grieving. They were like 3, 5, and 7 years old. And beyond the grief, I was able to see something, though, that right in front of me was an opportunity to discover who I am outside of my roles and responsibilities. So as I went on to make this new normal for my children and heal my heart, I also embarked on this journey of self-discovery. And it was scary because I had never asked myself, who am I? And I was a little nervous, like, what if I didn't like who I discovered? What if the people that I care about didn't like who I discovered, right? It turned out, which it really would for anybody and everybody, that you're going to discover someone you love. I discovered a creative, grateful soul who has some gifts to share with the world. And I was like, how did I not know this woman for the first 45 years of my life? So it was like that bird who goes out on the limb, not because it trusts the limb not to break, but because it trusts its wings to fly. Then I also trusted my wings, and I abandoned my definition of success that I'd been chasing my whole adult life that wasn't actually even my own definition. I found the confidence to quit my 6-figure salary job. I embarked full steam ahead on this brand new career I have now as a life coach and a speaker and an entrepreneur. And so this story is really about getting to know who I am, because what that did is that led me to redefining success around who I am. And then incorporating these tools and concepts, many of which I've shared today, that I've learned throughout my coach trainings and my experience and all different aspects of my life, and all the other amazing people like we have here today that I have also learned from. When I incorporate all those tools and concepts, they keep me living a peaceful, balanced life. And then trusting my wings is what enables me to fly. So as women, the biggest lesson that we can learn is to discover who we are. Our true identity has nothing to do with your roles, your responsibility, your life experiences, your illnesses. That's not your your identity. I actually caution my clients, like my mom, we just got news 2 days ago, wonderfully, that she has ovarian cancer, and she had it a second time, and this PET scan came back clean, and the blood work came back clean. We had a nice party Saturday night I hosted. But I don't want her to call herself a cancer survivor, because that is an identity that is tied to the tragedy of cancer. So I don't like to say I am is an identity of who I truly am. It's not about you are not your experiences. You are not, I don't want to say I am a survivor, right? I don't even say I am a widow. Technically, it's true. Who I am is something much more whole and beautiful than any of roles, responsibilities, or tragedies or experiences in my life. And that is when you reinvent yourself, that is what you notice. You're not actually even reinventing yourself. You're reinventing your life around who you are once you discover who that truly is.
Wow, thank you.
I can share my story a little bit. And, I was a stay-at-home mom for many, many years, and I wouldn't take back those years for anything. I kept my days very full, but I loved being, a hands-on mom, a PTA volunteer, and I did fill my time with other responsibilities. I was sitting on a national women's board, but I remember when my younger daughter was applying to colleges, and I knew that she was going to be leaving the nest that next year. In a way, I thought that I was like, being demoted, or I was, going to have kind of like going out on unemployment, like what was going to happen. And I really took that opportunity to sort of ask myself, what did I really want to do? What meant something special for me? And, I'm a lifelong learner. I've taken many certification courses, which have sort of helped me find sort of a new path and a new career post stay-at-home mom. And there's so many amazing opportunities out there these days with, what's going out there, what's on the internet. There's so many courses that you have the opportunity to sort of expand your mind. I just really encourage people to see what's out there and kind of see what your interests are and where you can kind of take that to the next level. And also kind of pushing your boundaries a little bit. And, for me, joining She Can and meeting so many diverse women has really helped me and helped me gain some self-confidence and just sort of pushed myself a little bit outside of my boundaries. We talked about boundaries, and I think every once in a while it's okay to push yourself outside of your boundaries, because it can really expand your world, expand your thinking and your network. It's just so important. So those are sort of a few lessons that I have learned. And I really want to, again, thank some of the women on the screen today who I've gotten to know on a deeper level over the past few years. And you have brought so much joy and knowledge into my own being. So thank you.
That's a great suggestion all the way through. My story is that I went through a divorce when I was going into menopause and my daughter was 13. No wonder. But I found myself a single mom with an enormous amount of debts that I had not known about, and had to dig out of all of that. And out of that experience, not knowing anything about divorce, although I was still a financial person, eventually I expanded my boundaries. I stopped defining myself as somebody's wife. And I found that I had the ability to move forward and to accomplish the goals that I set, not necessarily all on my own, but as a single person. And out of that, I had in my practice, I had 3 women in a row some years later come in, and they each of them had a problem with divorce and finances. And I said, you know what? Thank you, God. This is my place. This is my niche. This is my role. I can use my experience and help others. And that helped me shape what I created as my career as women's wealth advocate, as a divorce financial analyst, as well as a holistic financial planner. So it's a matter of using what you have, digging down to get the confidence to move forward. Is it easy? No. Is it doable? Yes. And sometimes when you find yourself in a situation you define as adversity, you're forced to find the strength. And as moms, that's what we do because we don't have a choice. So it can be a matter of, as we've said before, taking a situation that's really horrible on the face of it, turning it around and realizing that there's good in it as well, and learning from all that how to develop your own strength. And out of developing my own strength, I realized that I then had room for someone else, and found my partner so that I don't have to do it all myself. And being able to give and to receive is the greatest gift that life experience can give us.
Very true. I'd love to just piggyback on the strength thing. And I love, Adrienne, that you brought that up. And it has to do with this resilience we're speaking about. I think of it like this. I think in metaphors and pictures all the time. So I think like, okay, you're somewhere in life, in motherhood and elsewhere, where you're on this mountain and you're trying to scale this mountain, and you're like a rock climber, and you got this tenuous finger hold some days and toe holds, and you look up and you can't see the top, and you're like, oh crap, that's really far. And you look way down, you're like, whoa, I don't want to fall. That's way too far. And if you look at that little tiny mirror that's attached to your helmet and you look behind you, all of those mountains that you've already scaled behind you, they're actually beautiful, because not only have they, in your climbing, made you stronger, they've actually shown you how strong you are. So strength, a lot of times women aren't aware of how much strength we already have. We want to get stronger, be stronger. We think things make us stronger, but we don't acknowledge just how strong we are. And that's one of the hallmarks of resiliency, is when you recognize how strong you are, you're like, okay, I can get through this as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone wants to add something to this? No? Okay, lovely. Well, thank you so much. I'm just going to hand over to those lovely ladies in the audience. If you've got any question, feel free to put it in the chat, or if you want, unmute yourself and just put the question out there, and our panelists will be happy to answer any questions.
I just want to come on and just say thank you, ladies, so much. I find, I'm a she canner, so I hear this stuff all the time, right? But I forget to practice it, and I forget to go into that toolbox of all this amazing information that you ladies have provided, that other speakers have provided for me. So I know I'm a little curious, because like my days are busy and things get crazy, and I tell myself I'm gonna do this thing, the next thing I'm right back into my same, oh, I just gotta get this done and this done. Do you guys just like set a timer up and you're gonna like go into your toolbox, or I don't know, I'm just trying to set the tone, because it's like I start something and then I fall back into just trying to focus on like the top things I gotta get done. And stress is happening and all this other stuff is weaving its way in.
I loved, Amanda, that you kind of brought up using a timer, because that is something that I've actually been doing. I think I've got like some, if I need to clean the house, but I need to, write an article, if I have this huge list of things that I need to get done, and it seems overwhelming. I think sometimes literally setting a timer and giving yourself an opportunity to kind of make small chunks to break your things to do into smaller chunks, you'll feel like you've accomplished something. You know, it could be, you know, emptying the dishwasher, or, you know, folding a lot of laundry, or something more substantial, something for work that needs to get done. But I love either the night before or first thing in the morning to kind of write my things to-do list. And if I want to accomplish a lot of things on that list, I do that thing is I set my timer. What can I accomplish in 20 minutes? And you would be surprised how much you can get done in good focused 20-minute intervals. And then you got to schedule in some breaks for yourself also. Then you got to also schedule in that walk outside and breathing in that fresh air, or having a piece of dark chocolate that Peggy was talking about. But breaking up things, your responsibilities, into small chunks so you feel productive throughout the day.
A simple Google Calendar has been a great tool for me, and it might seem like work writing things down. All she's doing is making more things for me to do. But at the end of the day, I look back at my Google Calendar when I think I didn't get anything done today. All our culture values in the US is productivity. What did I do today? It's all written down. And I color code things. I don't know if you're into color coding, but I love that, because then I can go back and everything, I can pull up just the green or just the orange, and red is medical. Maybe you can have a color for each child. It just makes things look so clear and organized. And I do put the household chores. I do put the errands on the calendar, because then when 5 o'clock comes around and I go, what did I do today? I can look back and know my day was full. I was a good person. I was productive. I did self-care. I did all the right things. And I don't should myself. I should have done this. I could have done that. I look at it and go, your day was full. You could not have done anything more. I'm proud of you. Here's your piece of chocolate.
That's nice. So also, we've given so many tools today, each one of us here. And one of the things that I think we've talked about is prioritizing your own prioritizing yourself. And when you do that, then everything else that you're doing will not come with this much overwhelm. If you look at your to-do list and you ask yourself this honest question, honestly, how many of these things am I doing to prove my significance to someone? I've had clients that have taken 75% of the things off their list because they were like, holy crap, the reason I say yes to writing all these articles, I had one client who was a writer, is because I'm trying to prove I'm a good writer and that I'm significant and I have something to say. The reason I do, and so she's like, 75% of my to-do list is me trying to prove myself to somebody else. When you take the time to prioritize and put in your calendar to prioritize doing this work for yourself, looking at yourself, and de-stressing yourself and making yourself a priority, then you'll recognize that there's a lot less to do, right, as well. And another thing is, like, I am a multi-passionate person. I can get into hyper-focus, but I can also switch on a dime. 5 seconds later, I'm working on something else. John laughs at me because I always have at least 30 tabs open in 2 or 3 or 4 browser windows. Like, it's crazy how many things I work on. I know multitasking isn't a real thing, that you're just task switching. I get that. But multi-passionate people like me, time blocking doesn't work because we've got to feel to do what's next instead of read about what's to do next. So my to-do list is more like a menu, and I get to decide what I want for breakfast or lunch or dinner in any order I feel like it, instead of I'm doing, you know what? I put demand generation on my calendar every day at 11 o'clock. I have never done it at 11 o'clock. I don't know why I put that on my calendar. People say time block. I'm like, I'm going to try it. I'm very good at ignoring it, but I might do it at 3 o'clock or, 10 in the morning. And then why am I doing demand generation, right? I got to question the why of every single thing on my list. If it's not in service of my own personal mission, which is to, help people lighten their load, right? And give their gifts to the world and live peaceful, balanced lives. If what I'm doing isn't in service of that, then why am I doing it, right?
Well, I will chime in and say, first of all, Amanda, the last thing that we want to do is have this panel create any more overwhelm for anybody. There's a lot of tools here. Take a couple that you like. You don't have to try every single one of them. They've worked for us in different ways, and we're all in different places than you are right now. One of the tools that I use that I love is called a mindfulness bell. It's a free app, and I can schedule when it happens, although I let it be random. Every hour, I get this beautiful singing bell tone, and it reminds me to stop whatever I'm doing, take a breath, refocus, and then it also reminds me that an hour has passed. So if I'm dithering around, it's kind of like get yourself back in gear note. And if I've been full on in gear, it's my reminder to take a breath and take a little break. None of us got all this stuff all at once. It took all of us our lives to generate all of this. And so we don't expect anybody who still has little kids at home to take on all of this. Take what works for you. Pick one or two things, give them a try. And we will all feel fulfilled if they make your day just a little bit easier.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else wants to share a question? Mary, you're still here. So if you've got a question, feel free to pop it in the chat or unmute yourself. And if not, that's okay too, obviously. Otherwise, ladies, anyone feels like they want to add something that we haven't covered, anything that you feel like you need to share before we switch off for today?
One thing that I'd like to share is I know that for many of us, money is a major stressor. And one of the things that I learned that really helped me as an adult was to save a little bit, save 10% out of every paycheck, save $10 a week out of the grocery money, however that works for you, in a savings account that's just yours. My mother used to call it pin money. I call it a freedom fund. Having that extra little savings account for me meant that I could do something that I wanted to do that I didn't have to ask anybody else permission for. Gave me the freedom to dream a little bigger because I knew I had a bit of a financial cushion. It can be small or large, but just having some resources that I could call upon just gave me an extra feeling of confidence. And if that's applicable for any of our audience, then please do that. Make it a regular thing, whether you feel you need it or not. Just set it up, and you'd be amazed at how much more confident you can be, how much bigger you can dream, knowing you have some resources that you can call your own.
Anyone else wants to share something? No?
This is your life. This is your opportunity to make it a really great ride. You don't get to do it all over again. But on the same token, every day you have an opportunity to refill your glass and to change and to pivot and to figure out what you want to do. So, just do it.
And you don't need to do it alone. Find your community, and it could be a group of moms, or it could be a group of other women that you have nothing in common with, but you can learn from in different ways. So reach out, find your community, because you don't need to do it alone.
And give yourself time to grieve losses. And I don't mean just like death of a family member, major life losses, little losses. I recently suffered some major health setbacks and was denied life-changing surgery because the government changed which insurances, which hospitals can accept, and it's all very muddled. I panicked and I got angry, I lashed out, I went through the stages of grief, and I thought, you know what, I'm canceling the rest of my day and I'm allowing myself time for self-care. I'm allowing myself time to feel as angry and upset about this as I have a right to. and it was a Friday, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have a me weekend, and I'm going to come back on Monday because every day is the present. It's a gift. And I'm going to come back on Monday, and I've got a little list of 5 things I can do to try to help me get past this obstacle. But don't force yourself to immediately go into problem solving mode. I have to do it right now because it feels so urgent and you're so afraid. It's very easy to fall into, I have to solve the problem right now. Give yourself time to recover. It's like when you're upset and you're going to lash out and send an angry reply email. Maybe write it all down to get it out of you, but don't send it. Wait and see how you feel the next day. Maybe you don't like the tone of the email so much the next day and you're glad you didn't send it. Give yourself time to recover before you take action.
And I'd like to also just leave the audience with just a few things. One is, remember that you have an inner strength that maybe you've been previously unaware of, but it's pretty amazing. Second thing is, everything that you need is already inside you, just waiting to be revealed. And the final thing is that you are the one that you've been waiting for.
I love that so much. Thank you everyone for sharing. Again, I appreciate your time, your support that you've shown me, the support you've shown the community. I loved all your wisdom that you shared, and I personally learned so much, and I'm sure everyone who's listening as well. And I just want to say that to everyone who's been on the series with me and who's watched and who's emailed me, etc., you're all doing amazing. You're amazing mummies because you're trying to find ways to do things better. You're trying to find ways to look after yourself. And I think that's just incredibly important to do. And whatever little baby step you can do is the step in the right direction. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you. And bye for now. Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.